boy, he never gets low down, but he's got the dirtiest job in town. Get rhythm. Bending low at people's feet on the windy corner of the dirty street. Get rhythm. Well, I asked him while he shined my shoes, how'd he keep from getting the blues? Get rhythm. He grinned as he raised his little head, he popped his shoe shine rag and he said, get rhythm. Come on, get rhythm. Come on, get rhythm. Come on, get rhythm. Come on, get rhythm. It only costs a dime, just a nickel a shoe. It does $1 million worth of good for you. Get rhythm. Well, I sat down to listen to the shoeshine boy, and I thought I was gonna jump with joy. Get rhythm. Slapped on my shoe polish left and right. He took his shoeshine rag and he held it tight. Get rhythm. He stopped once to wipe the sweat away. I said, you mighty little boy to be a working that way. Get rhythm. She said, I like it with a big wide grin. Kept on the popping and he said again, get rhythm. Come on, get rhythm.
Hello, Internet. My name is John Kulas. I am a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology. I'm a 10-year user of R for statistical applications. And for the last 6 or 7 years, I've also been using R to author things, data reports, websites, academic papers, slide decks. And this live stream that happens every Friday, happens every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, is an opportunity to get together with other people who are using R to author things. For the last few weeks, we've been focused on a long-term project of trying to create a template that can be used at different universities for theses and dissertations. Graduate schools always impose draconian formatting requirements on these documents, and it's always somewhat different across institutions. And so some institutions have these templates, many don't. And so for the long term here, we're kind of diving into this project of trying to create something that other institutions can use. Because that is kind of a long-term solve, and because we haven't had interaction from people yet who bring their own projects to the panel, which hopefully will happen in the future. But because of that, we've been also doing short-term issues, and today we're gonna do it a little different. I don't think we haven't yet had a back-to-back follow-up with the same short-term issue. But last week we spent so much time just kind of treading water on a few different issues. One of them we'll recap both of them today. But so today what we're going to do is we're going to revisit the cross-reference issue, and we'll delve into those a little deeper, and maybe see if we can do something a little more fancy with those cross-references. And I guess I forgot to put the actual words cross-references in. My over-reliance on emojis, I think, can bite me in the arse there on that one. So I just put crossing signs instead of cross-reference, but that's referring to cross-references that we'll cover today. Before we get to that, we always do a recap of what happened last week. So let's have a transition here.
Well, the attack of the abominable snowman came to grief when our boy Rocky zoomed to the defense of his pal Bullwinkle. The snowman definitely came off the loser, but then both our heroes were surprised to hear a familiar voice emerging from inside the snowman.
Get me out of here.
That's our friend Gidney the Moon Man.
But how can we get him out? He's been ate by the snowman.
No, Bullwinkle, he is the snowman.
Only half, Rocky. I'm the other part.
Hey, that sounds like...
The name is Cloyd.
Gee, you sure sounds like him, too.
Here, Bullwinkle, help me tear this cover off.
And when Rocky zipped open the cover, sure enough, there were the two moon men, Gidney and Cloyd.
Whatever were you doing in that getup?
Tell him, Cloyd. Well, I thought it would be a good joke.
Joke? It like to scared us out of 7 years growth.
So there's actually two things that we focused on last week. One was the cross references, and the other was a live install that we did of the new our studio release. We didn't know. We'd heard that there was, well, certainly we knew that there was this new release of Quarto that came out. It was accompanied with a press release, and there was news about it on Twitter, and I guess that's the main place I heard about it from. But there were more advancements that were contained in this new version of Quarto version 1.4. So we decided to do a live install, not of Quarto, but of our studio. And because there were a few reasons that we thought that the R Studio release might actually come bundled with the Quarto software platform. And one of those reasons is because of the package numbers. The numbering on the package in terms of the version versus the numbering on the version of the software platform itself. The other reason we thought that might happen is because oh, we have a guest here. Let's bring the guest on. Trying to find. I guess we can just use, I don't want to make this her default intro, but we can use the intro if I can find it that we actually used last time. Oh my gosh, I think I might have actually deleted it. We'll just do the new one.
Feel very called out right now.
What? Because of the gym?
No, the donuts.
Oh, the donuts. Are you a donut fan?
I do like donuts. For my birthday, we went to Voodoo Donuts instead of getting a cake.
Well, that's probably long-term better, right? Because you don't have cake sitting around for a week. You just eat the donuts in one sitting.
Yeah, but we bought a box of a dozen donuts and there were 3 of us. So
okay, gotcha. Well, happy birthday, whenever that was.
thanks. It was a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
I actually, so I get shamed by a couple of people. My brother, I think is similar. So maybe it's genetic, but I prefer cheap gas station donuts over like nice donuts. Like an old-fashioned cake donut, just I don't know. I mean, I like donuts are great no matter what. But if I had my druthers, I would just go to a gas station and get a 90. I guess I don't know how much they are anymore because I don't go into gas stations anymore. But they used to be like 99 cents. So last week, Katrina, this kind of, we didn't know what to expect, but we did a live install. I don't think you were here for that. We did a live install of the new R Studio, just version, because R Studio in the last year or two, or Posit rather, the new company that's now branded Posit, when they come up with an R Studio version, they cleverly, in your local version of R Studio, they'll come up with a pop-up that says, hey, there's a new version available. Do you want it? And it's kind of persistent. And every time you open up a new R Studio session, it's, hey, get our new thing. And so the new R Studio prompting came roughly at the same time that this Quarto 1.4 release came out, and they kind of made a big hullabaloo. There was more. It was easier to hear about this than it was to hear about previous versions. So their marketing maybe has improved, or maybe I'm just paying more attention. But anyway, so we were thinking that maybe Quarto would come rolled in with the new R Studio. So
Mhm.
so so I did an install on my local machine here of R Studio, and then we were confused that the Quarto package that you see within your R environment, it wouldn't update, and it wasn't possible to update it. That is, it was version 1.3, and we're like, oh, okay, so obviously Quarto 1.4 didn't come installed. And anyway, the reason I'm talking around this so much is because we did verify that Quarto, the software, is different from Quarto, the R package. And so
Gotcha.
that was good. That was good to know. So it's just kind of coincidental that the versions were exactly synced right when we were trying to do a live install. So there is a difference between Quarto, the software, which you do need to go externally on the internet, go grab it and install it on your machine, and Quarto, the package that you see from within R. And really what that package does, let me exit this and show you just my R environment. What that package actually does is it facilitates the use of Quarto within R. So Quarto it's an authoring platform that's intended to be used by all these different programming languages. And some of these programming languages have a tradition of command line interfaces. So by command line, I mean actually typing in commands in a format like a
Mhm.
programmer would see. Now, when social science students first encounter R, their first reaction typically is to recoil in fear and like, oh my God, I went into the humanities or social sciences or whatever it is because I didn't want any of this stuff. So, so our studio, I think, did a great job of creating a package that bypasses the need to do many of those command line um, commands, I guess. And so, for example, this render button that we see, I don't have my highlighter on me, but up towards the upper left of the screen here, this render button is something that I'm pretty sure probably is associated with the Quarto package itself. And yeah, last week we just kept, I think it was Casey and Diego and I, we kept looking at this and we're like 1.3, oh, it's still 1.3. But it was just kind of a happy coincidence. So we also looked at cross references last week, but we got a little hung up on those as well, um, with a silly syntax error that I kept making, and we couldn't figure out what it was. So we didn't get to delve as deeply into them as we wanted to. So I think today, what I was planning on doing was to revisit those cross references and take a look at how to use them within Quarto documents. And then hopefully Diego will show up, because I didn't get to spend any time last week on the dissertation templates. Now, he and I on Tuesday, we did get together and we did find a couple of places to poke and prod. We found the CLS file that contains a lot of the LaTeX that controls where things go within the document. And just, should something be bold type font? Should something be underlined? Where do the page numbers go? All of that silly little stuff is important for graduate schools. They want to make all of their theses and dissertations standardized in terms of format. So hopefully he shows up and we'll be able to do that. There's kind of two different things to think about when we're talking about cross references. One is just what is the thing that you're trying to cross reference. And last week we did see that Quarto has they've got built in about 20 different types of objects that you can cross reference. And the reason that's important is because that's the prefix of what the cross reference is going to look like in your document. We did last week get to images, figures, and code blocks. So this week, I think what we'll do is we'll spend a little more time on those two different methods to do things within Quarto documents, and that is to use fences or to use brackets. So those fenced divs or bracketed spans, we'll revisit those. And then I want to do callouts for sure, and probably equations, and then sections. Sections is a good thing to know how to cross-reference, because while it's handy to navigate documents, in addition to a table of contents, it's nice to just be able to jump from one section to another. We've always been able to do that within our Markdown documents, but Quarto seems to have expanded the cross-referencing capabilities. So let me pull up just a blank document here. I guess we've been using, in this repo, we have just a blank test QMD. And so I'm going to overwrite that. So we'll just go ahead and say new file, Quarto document. And we can leave it untitled for now. And I think as we're kind of playing with these different features that we don't necessarily, we're not adept at ourselves yet, it's probably a good idea to try what we're trying first within an HTML document, because those HTML, and I'm just going to overwrite the test QMD that we have, because those HTML documents seem to be the least buggy or the most conformable to the neat things that we are trying to do. In this case, just add cross references. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of most of this. I'll leave that first paragraph. But so we had, let me see, I think I have a few notes here that can help. And I also do have the Quarto help page. I did have it referenced. I got to pull up my slide deck one more time so I can get the cross reference that I put in the slide deck. And there it is, this highlighted blue links to, oh, I did actually have it. Links to the cross-reference page. And there's a lot of things on here. Again, I said there's probably about 20 different cross-references. These are the number of built-in cross-reference types that they have. I think what I was hoping to do was to cover a couple of these types. One of them, tables are probably going to be most useful, not in the R Markdown type table format, but if we use a package like cable or something like that and present a table that looks a little more nicely formatted. And that seems to be easier done with, well, there's, again, two different ways to do it. You can use fences or you can use brackets. But as I scroll here, you can see there's a lot. What I wanted to start with maybe are just callouts. And again, one of the kind of neat things about Quarto 1.4, one of the reasons that we're looking at cross references is because one of the new features is this preview upon hover, which is neat. So that wasn't something that either our Markdown or previous versions of Quarto actually had, where if you hover over the cross reference, you see a preview of what it is that's being referenced. And so we can try different.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's super cool, I think. We did callouts a few weeks ago, and callouts are pretty neat, I think. So there are a few different types of callouts. We can try, we won't try the one that they have here. We'll try a warning. Now they're using fences, these three colons to start and finish, at least 3 colons sequentially. That's the beginning and end of a fence. So we won't do exactly what they have here. We'll do something a little different. There are 5 different types of built-in callouts. So we can try a, I think, warning. Remember how to do it. I think it's .callout warning. And we'll just say, oh no, look out. And we'll just leave it pretty simple right now and see if it renders as a warning. There it is. Cool. So if we want to reference that at some later point in the document, hey, Here's my document. Katrina, you and I were just talking offline about maybe collaborating on a book. You're going to see my poor writing skills and poor grammar, and you're going to run away from that idea. You're going to say, oh my God, no, we don't want to do that. And so
That's okay. One of my strong suits is editing, so it'll be fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, you mentioned that before, actually. That's fantastic, because that's not something that a lot of people would, volunteer for, I don't think. So the way to format these cross references is they want the prefix, and this is where we got hung up last week, is we weren't being cautious about our use of prefixes. And so there's different types of tip. This is saying the type of tip that we're referencing here is going to be a warning. And this hashtag is kind of universally just a label on the element that we have here. So before we call it out in the document, let's just make sure it still renders and doesn't throw us an error. Okay, that was unexpected. It actually, oh, you know why? Because I called it a tip. And I shouldn't call it a tip. I should call it, I need to look back. I'll pull this up so everyone can see it here. But we need to look back at the types of valid prefixes that we have. And so here they are: figure, table, list, tip, note, warning, important, and caution. Those are the call outs. So what we actually have isn't a tip, it's a warning. So I put warning in the wrong spot. Warning should have been the prefix. So good thing we rendered it. Let's take a look here and see what happens. Now it just calls it warning 1. Now, here's one of the things about using these cross references is it's going to want to number them, and it's going to number them sequentially. So if we had a second warning and called it, I guess we just call it warning 2. Oh no, look out again. It should number that second one automatically too. And then if we were to, one of the reasons that we do all this authoring using systems like Quarto and R, and Katrina, you know this from authoring, for example, technical reports, dissertations, that sort of thing, that the sequencing of objects is automatically identified within the program, which is super nice when you do things like when you're submitting an author for a journal or a manuscript for a journal submission, and they're like, well, move this around and get rid of that figure and add this table. And part of the hassle historically for that kind of stuff is not just doing it, but the editing of it and the searching and finding and replacing in your document of like fig 1. I remember I had one that it must have had 12 figures or something, and we had to get rid of figure 2, right? So you're trying to do like a find and replace, and like it's replacing 11 instead of 1, because that's 2 1s, and it's like, oh, it was a mess. What a mess. That's one of the reasons I'm so like passionate about this kind of thing. So the way we call
it's even bigger mess when you don't start from like one end or the other. And then you start somewhere in the middle, and now you have no idea what really is figure 1 and figure like 7 and figure 8.
Yeah, exactly. And then internally, whoever's doing it with you, you have like these little codes. You're like, oh no, well, old 8, no, go find old 8, because we got the new 7 here, and the new 7 is actually the old 6. But and like if aliens overheard that conversation, they'd probably just leave right away, because they'd be like, these people aren't worth, they're not worth bothering. So the @ sign is how we call it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's why we haven't had any contact with extraterrestrials.
Yeah, it's all because of academics.
They don't like the academics.
Yeah, they're like, these are supposed to be the smart people, and listen to the way they talk. It's like, no, let's just go to the next solar system. Maybe there's something in the Pleiades. Although the Pleiades is supposedly where the aliens are from. The aliens that are coming here. So there we go. So there's a cross-reference.
This is warning.
What's that?
So was that supposed to be for warning too?
No, I put it. Remember, I replaced.
Oh,
I swapped the
okay,
orderings of it. Yeah, so that's a
Right.
good point. I should probably call these something different. So this is aliens are coming, and then we have academics talk weird. So we'll actually reference the second one. And see how that looks.
Gotcha.
Neat. So I thought we could also do equations, because we sometimes do use equations. Now I'm gonna butcher this like crazy. Maybe we'll do a simple one here. So let's try to do, and the way that we do equations is to use $signs, and then we're going to write some LaTeX code in between there. The / is important. This is how we do, for example, notation that's used in math, and not just math, but sometimes methodology as well. So I think we talked 1 week about alpha and the number of different things that alpha can signify. Maybe let's just use alpha, actually, as long as it's there. Let's see if we can, and I'm going to look at my reference document again here, if I can find it. Why do I always lose that? I must have X'd out of it.
If you go back to the browser you were in and then do, I think it's Control-Shift-T, you'll get your tab back.
You know all these shortcuts. The problem is that it was in, what's the Microsoft one? It was in Edge. It pulls up an Edge automatically.
That's okay. You can still open Edge and do it again. It should still come back up.
If I can find Edge.
It's whatever the last tab was, right there. In your productivity on the little to the right. It says Microsoft, then Microsoft Edge, then Microsoft Store.
Oh.
Like a little to the right.
Okay. Yep, got it. So you said, watch some horrible site come up that's going to out me on the internet. Would you say Control-Shift-T? Control-Shift-T.
Control-Shift-T. Yeah.
Okay.
Should work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Neat. That's good to know. Maybe it was, I don't know where it went. But so we're trying to find out how to label an equation, and there it is. If we want to verify that, we can go down to the equation section, and it says, yeah, just use a hashtag EQ-, and I'll try not to lose that. So let's just see if that works with alpha, even though it's not an equation. It's within kind of a LaTeX scripted thing element, and so okay, it didn't come up on. I didn't like that, so we can try. Can see if that would work in a fence instead of bracketed, and if that doesn't work, then we'll look and see what the suggestion is specifically on the help page. Spacing does seem to have a lot of consequences here yet within Quarto, and that happened in R Markdown as well. So I'm intentionally putting a blank line here on line 21 between the fence, the opening fence and the closing fence. It may be, I guess it may be that alpha itself isn't an equation. I think for equations, we can give it an equation name as well within the fence. So let's try to call it, let's see if this works. We'll give it a label and see if that pops into our document, it just shows up as text. If we want to reference it, we can say a fancy symbol is located in, and then at EQ alpha. So let's take a look and see how equations are being referenced here. Oh, they're actually, okay. So in LaTeX, there's a difference between single dollar signs and double dollar signs. Single dollar signs are usually used for smaller bits of equations that are contained on a single line. And if it goes over multiple lines, you can use the double dollar signs, but it looks like it wants a couple of things here. And the first thing that we can try is just the double dollar sign notation and see if that renders this little bit to be what we would consider a valid. So I'm going to get rid of our fences as well. And we'll come back to that. We can try fences later, but let's try double dollar sign. And then they had curly brackets, EQ alpha. And let's try that.
Oh. It's centered now.
Yeah, it's centered it, and it's centered it, which it does by default with the double dollar signs. And then it also gives it this equation number. If we were to give it a second, equation, it would, number that number 2, just like it does with the warnings and equations. I guess there was one other thing that I thought we should probably go over. Oh, sections. We do need to cover sections. So we should just be able to go up to a header, any header, and give it curly brackets and a title. Now, this probably has a prefix as well. This never had a prefix in R Markdown. In the R Markdown ecosystem, whether you were using just Markdown itself or Bookdown or Blogdown or one of those derivatives, we didn't need a prefix. But here, just like with warn and EQ, we're gonna need a prefix on that as well. So let's look at our reference section here and see what that is. SEC. So anyone that watches this from the Southeast is a sports fan would be happy to see that it's SEC. So we'll try SEC, main. And then we should be able to reference that down here as well. If you want to see some empty boilerplate info, please go to. And then, one of the things about these cross references is if you're using them for the appropriate type of element, that I shouldn't need to say, please go to section, whatever, because it's going to automatically say it's a section or it's an equation or it's a warning. So what do we call it? Main. We'll try to render that. And then
that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I don't know why I love it so much, but I really love this preview on hover. That's so cool. It's actually
it looks really nice.
It does look really nice. It's actually pulling up the whole section. You can customize what is said as well. And so let me pull up the reference again here so I don't just have to do this off the top of my head. But one of the ways that I thought was neat to kind of do a little bit of customizing is using square brackets. And see if here. So if I wanted to customize the prefix in terms of what that says in terms of section or figure or warning, I should be able to override with square brackets. So yeah, so let's try that. So let's go square brackets, and I guess we can call it boilerplate.
Intro? Oh,
yeah, intro.
boilerplate.
Intro is good. So it should still number it. So it should say, instead of section 1, we're expecting that it says intro 1. So that's a really kind of neat way to do it. And then they also have, just if you want to get rid of any text whatsoever, that minus sign, that's fairly universal in these types of documents, as a way to control what's said. So this should just hyperlink 1. So some pretty straightforward, almost intuitive type syntax for that kind of stuff. Diego's not here, so I think we can go ahead and do maybe one more type of call out, unless you have something, Katrina, that you want to focus on.
Not really. I mean, I don't have anything at the moment. We are actively working on the handbook, though, so we're going to have something soon.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you're working on content?
Yeah, we're working on content.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we're getting there soon.
All right.
Within maybe like a month, I think we can build it out.
Oh, okay. And so that means that we can probably meet in person and take a look at it too. This PSYOP is PSYOP is what, in a couple of months?
A couple months, yeah.
How is your team's machine learning project or progress going, I guess?
I haven't done too much yet because I got really busy. However, I gotta say, we might have a ringer on our team.
Oh, well, okay. Is that the ringer that you brought on the team, or is that someone that is in the program?
So it's someone who isn't in the IO program, but I've been working with students in the data science master's program on consulting projects, and one of those students has been doing projects with LLMs and wants more experience with them. And since that's what the machine learning competition is this year, he has to join. And he has been so proactive and so excited.
That's awesome.
So honestly, I mean, that kid's been doing like the work of at least 3 people.
That's fantastic.
I know. It's funny because oh, sorry, my friend Albert's on the team too, and he's like literally like a data scientist, software engineer kind of person. And the student Dan has been asking him all these questions, and Albert and I were talking. He's like, "Yeah, I gotta brush up on things so he doesn't realize I'm a fraud."
Yeah. A fraud. That's a word. Yeah, that's a word that's not, well, it probably shouldn't be used too often, but it's a comic word that should be used more frequently.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is funny. Oh, there is. So I did think of one thing about the book. I don't know what made me think about it. I guess when you're talking about your job a little bit. But so the thing about a book, I love the idea, and hopefully maybe we do something with that. But those they're generally frowned upon for more junior faculty members because they can be kind of tenure killers. Schools don't put any value on books. I know it sounds weird, but they want to see the peer-reviewed journal stuff more than books. So you and I can chat about that if we get serious about the book itself.
Yeah, we should talk about it because I actually am like I really would like to put in the app for that. And I think they're due like April 1st. But it's a pretty sizable grant. It's like 150,000 for like creating the book.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Let's chat about it. Like I told you, that was something I kicked around for a long time, and I probably should have just done it.
Well, now's the time, Dr. Koulas.
Yeah, maybe.
The opportunity has presented itself.
Well, I think the time may have passed. Like I said, somebody is doing that. If anyone happens to watch this and you know who the person is who's putting together a psychometrics using R book, I think they're using Bookdown or one of the other R authoring platforms, and I saw it over a year ago. I saw an outline of it, and I was like, that looks pretty much like what I would do. So we gotta track that down first. I don't remember who it was. You asked about publishing house, Katrina, like who it was maybe affiliated with. I think it was honestly just kind of completely open source.
Gotcha.
I'm just some guy that's like, I'm just doing it. But yeah, we need to find that. I did do a brief little search on my laptop, and it wasn't bookmarked there. Of all the stupid things I bookmarked, like something useful like that, it's like, really? It's got to be bookmarked somewhere.
I share the sentiment.
Yeah. I have crossword puzzle sites and a Sudoku site, like bookmarked on every computer.
Are those the ones I sent you?
No, I'm really picky about those too. So I had one that I used for years, and I loved the format of it, and then I lost access to it, or whatever. It was a newspaper, and I think it was a newspaper that was probably struggling because people like me didn't have, subscriptions. They were just doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku. So they yanked those, and now it's the Washington Post. So now I use, and they still let you have access, and their crossword puzzle and Sudoku in particular, I like the format of them, the interactive online ones. So those are the ones that I use. Yeah, they're bookmarked instead of. Go ahead.
I use New York Times.
I think as I'm aging and losing my cognitive horsepower, I think I might have aged beyond the New York Times crossword puzzle, especially the later in the week ones. I don't know.
They're hard.
They're so hard.
They're really hard. Like Antonio and I will sit down to do one, and it'll be hours, and we still want to figure out the whole thing. They're really hard.
I know. And so my undergraduate school, they always, I think they just stole it from the New York Times. They had the New York Times and the LA, I think, crossword puzzles. And I would always try to get the papers early in the week, and then toward the end of the week, I think I would just let it go and be like, I'm not even gonna try. I can't get that one. So what I was thinking here was to reference two things within the same code chunk, and so we should be able to theoretically reference the code that we write as well as the output of that code, because we're in R, right? And R is processing this stuff. So we need a picture. So as long as we have a little time here, let's do a search for a pretty visual in R and just see what we get. We'll try to pull something that we can just steal.
Ooh, that was pretty.
That one's pretty. It is pretty complex too. I like these density scatter plots. Those are always kind of neat.
Those are pretty nice.
It doesn't look like, well, usually they have the code for these. This isn't doing us any good. Are you showing pictures?
Hang on.
What's wrong with you, STHEA? Hold on, what? Oh, you can see what I've been looking at.
I was going to say, I think I could find. Yeah. Let's see.
Do you want to share your screen? Or not?
Nah, my internet's been kind of shitty today.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's going to run well if I share my screen.
Gotcha.
It wasn't earlier. I'm struggling with Comcast.
With commas? Did you say you're struggling with commas?
Comcast.
Oh, Comcast. Well, yeah, it'd be better to be struggling with commas.
My shitty internet provider.
They're
terrible.
I can empathize. I went to graduate school down there, and I had all kinds of issues with, what do they call them? What are the providers of utility providers?
Here, I sent
These
you
aren't that.
a link if that'll help.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, I used to send students to that. I should have thought of that. It's a great idea.
I still send my students there.
Yeah, I think this is a great site. Maybe we'll try a map.
Yeah. It's one of their R homeworks.
Yeah. Go there and see if you can reproduce it, or go there and just maybe grab one. What do you have them do?
Go there. Yeah, go there, grab one, and try and reproduce it with your data. They love this site, by the way, and I got this site from you, so thank you.
You're welcome. I haven't really explored it that much in terms of who created it or who maintains it, that kind of stuff. Oh, this is by the way, this is the other thing that one of the other things that this new version of Quarto is doing is it shows you kind of the rendering status that previously was just in the terminal tab, or no, it was in the background jobs tab. It's duplicated within the preview document itself. Yeah, that's a very pretty map. Let's see. Why is it night? It looks like it's a static map, so this isn't a live shot of anything. It's just a night shot of. Let's see what Katrina's doing. What is she doing? Is she playing Sudoku? See if we can zero in on her.
I don't know. I played a lot of Civ 6 over the winter break, though, so it's probably
Sims?
that.
Is that just is that the thing where you're? Go ahead.
Oh, Civilization 6, not Sim 6.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't think they've come out with Sim 6 yet.
Did you survive?
We're still on 4.
Or what?
Civilization 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't win, though.
Oh, yeah. So you can still win these games, huh? These kind of open world platform things, which I'm assuming everything pretty much is at this point. I didn't know if there was like a goal to win, or if you just kind of forever exist. So
it's like a more complicated version of Settlers of Catan.
Are you gonna try to win it?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to win. I just haven't won. So that I'm not trying.
I gotcha. So you're not done with it. You're gonna come back.
No. I've played like multiple games of it now. Like I currently have one going, and Diego and Ian are both in it too. We just got to find time to play again.
Are you characters? So I'm gonna put we're gonna try to get in a better habit of, instead of doing chunk commands up here where we used to do them in the curly brackets, the new Quarto system is to use these hashtags. So we'll try that. Okay. So we'll give what this should do is this should give our object here, it should actually give it a figure number. So we're just going to give it a label. But what I thought would be neat is if we not only give the figure a label, but we also reproduce the code and we give the code a label. So we're going to try to do two things in this one chunk. So the label, we got to use that prefix again. So we'll call it fig night map. And I don't know why I'm giving these things long names like that, but we also want to give it a formal caption, and we can say this is Spain at night. And we did get some warnings on it too. We don't want the warnings, so Let's get rid of the warning. And render this again. They did the code that we stole had 2 maps on it, so we took one out. And so what we should have here is we should have figure 1. This is Spain at night. Nice. And is that Spain? That's France. Is it? What is it? What are we looking at? Yeah, I think that's more
France.
Okay. It's the Spanish part of France.
Sure.
Let's change that. Okay. This is Francais at night. We didn't call it out yet down here, so we can call it out. One of the things we did verify last week too is in some of the R Markdown extensions, you needed to have the cross-reference come in below the code chunk. So, for example, it wouldn't work for me to say, see the pretty map in at, what did we call it? Fig night map. So previously, this line 53 in some platforms, in some R Markdown platforms, wouldn't work if I put it, for example, up here above the chunk. Now in Quarto, that seems okay, at least with the knitter engine that we're using in R. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so it's still, look at that preview, man. I love that preview. So figure 1, it should also jump there if you hit the hyperlink. So
I like the preview too.
Yeah, that's just so neat. Now, the other thing we want to do is we want to try to also.
It's so helpful for like academic writing too.
Oh yeah, especially like, you know, figures and tables at the end of manuscripts, right? The APA format. Like,
yep.
What was that picture again? You can scroll all the way to the end and then lose your place where you were. Yeah.
Talk about like editing and having to like renumber things and reorder things. You can quickly like hover over it to make sure you have the right one.
Oh, yes. That's a great point. Yeah. That is.
Yep. When I was doing my dissertation, I remember having multiple documents open of it, like multiple versions, trying to figure out like which table was which as I, put things in. It's insane.
Yeah. And you still have all your hair. That's impressive.
It's been growing back.
So the code chunk reference prefix is list. So I don't know why. That to me that doesn't make any sense. So we should be able to use list label and list cap to reference this code chunk. And so in the same chunk, we're referencing 2 different things. We have the figure 1, and then we'll see if we can reference this code chunk as well. So list cap, or we'll do it in the same order that we did on lines 28 and 29. So label, again, we need to use that LST dash. That's the most important part. We can just call it map code. And then hash pipe, which I think is so funny because it's a Weezer song. Do you know that Weezer song, hash pipe?
Yeah.
So maybe the Quarto people were Weezer fans. I don't know. But then we'll give it a caption as well. And I think both of these things are important. I'm not 100% sure on that. So let's actually, before we do list cap, let's just render it and see if we can reference it without the caption. We'll go ahead and put the code. The code is hidden here. And I'm going to copy that LST map code. And what we're doing is we're testing just to see if the cross-reference still works, even though we don't give a caption. to this code here. No, it didn't like that. So we might need both of them. So list cap. This is code to not zoom in on Spain. They've also, the new Quarto, they seem to have kind of rendered moot the whole question of whether we need double quotes around statements that have spaces in them or not. So it doesn't seem to have any issue with spaces, which again is nice. So here now it gave the code, it says listing. I don't like listing, so let's see if we can change it. Man, that hover is awesome, especially for code. It's fantastic. So let's actually maybe customize this a little bit, and we'll see if we can use that feature saying code. Now, that'll work for the prose-based line 58 rendering. I'll change it to code, but it's not going to change it up above. I don't think we have the time today, because we like to keep these at an hour and we're almost there. So we don't have the time to play with that today, but I'm sure that's something that we could customize as well in terms of the auto listing, the automatic printing of the listing prefix for our code here. But we can certainly play with it down here. All right, neat. So I don't know. I'm really digging these cross references. The other thing, I guess, before we call it a day is let's see what happens and how much it blows up, if at all, if we render to a PDF instead. Boom.
See how much it blows up.
Yeah, executions. It didn't like. This is
It didn't
different.
like that.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. It's because of our interactive map. Let's do not.
Okay.
Let's do not as crazy of a map. What was that code? Shift, Control, and T. You're gonna give me my pretties. Give me my pretties. So let's not do an interactive map. Let's just try a simpler chart here. There's a simple chart. And it's just creating its own data frame here, so we don't have to worry about any special packages. We should just be able to render that. Let's render that as a. What's that?
Well, we need ggplot.
Yeah, I think there was a library command in there. I think Yep, so we got it. Let's see if that renders as. We'll keep our France and Spain references in there, even though it's not France or Spain. And now it doesn't like our figure. Now, why is that?
Is the library call after the figure instead of before it?
It's at the top of the code chunk, but I'll put it in a previous one. I don't. Now that's curious, right? Because all we did was change the type. Oh, it didn't print out. So, we're not calling it out. Silly P.
That'll do it.
Yep. Okay, so let's try that. It doesn't like fig night map because there's no fig. There we go. Now we got a fig. And boys and girls, if anyone's watching this on YouTube, if you aren't familiar with geography, this is what France looks like. It's very purple, and this is what Spain looks like. It's very green.
What's the orange one there then? Or I guess it's more salmon.
Those are the aliens. Those are the aliens that are like coming in and overhearing the academic speak, and they're like, let's just get out of here. Not even, this isn't worth our effort. And the blue, this is the wine glass or bottle that both Spaniards and French people like to drink. Okay, so let's see if that actually...
that tracks.
Was our issue. Huh.
Oh, it's doing it.
I don't know. It's thinking. It's rendering. It says it's rendering. You know, one of the things that Quarto was supposed to facilitate, as opposed to the old R Markdown stuff, was some of this, the way that we had to call out things in an HTML versus a PDF rendered document were quite different.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like it might be okay. Now I've lost my... I seem to have lost my make this thing big ability here. So I'm just going to pull it from the files. So we still have our cross. So there's one difference here. We see in the HTML file, the entire prefix as well as the number were the hyperlinked elements. Here they just have the number hyperlinked. Oops. So that's a little different. We also, I think we lost our preview.
I was going to say I didn't see a preview.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Because this is a static document and HTML is a dynamic document. So that makes sense.
Well, just throw the whole thing away then. Not worth it without the preview.
Hey, it all worked except for the hover.
It did.
Neat. Yeah. All right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that looks good.
Cross references. Nito Bandito. All right, I think that's all we have time for today. Katrina, thanks for showing up. Let's chat offline about... Oh, sorry, there's Dr. Strange. I need a Dr. Strange drop for when that accidentally happens. Let's chat offline about the book idea and hopefully find that person who was writing what I thought sounded like, you know, what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, let's set up a time to talk about it, because there's some requirements for this grant, because it's like technically like through like the library budget for the state, but I don't think it's anything that'll be like detrimental.
Okay. Yeah, and then you're gonna have to think too, like maybe talk to your dean about it and see if the dean thinks it's a good idea or if it might impede. Like I said, those universities, they don't seem to place much value on books. In our discipline.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
So other disciplines, that's something that is valued, but not by psychologists. Okay, cool. Thanks for popping by, Katrina. I'll hopefully see you next week, if not before that.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'll probably be around.
Sweet. See ya.